Madhu, yaar vandirkama?
Only Kachida, there's only one. Inno Varna Matava.
Number Felix mama enga.
There phone on the switch off and varga.
Acha.
Something about Perumal Bakar. Turn me off. Say open. As good as Perumal Bakar. Your camera is not on.
My camera is on.
Really, I'm only seeing a black screen. Then it's dark.
Let me just leave the meeting and come back.
Sure.
No, even now it doesn't look like.
I can't see you.
Yeah, even I'm trying to figure out where is my.
Keel camera.
No, I have. It says it seems to imply that my video is on.
I haven't. No idea.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Ram, one suggestion is that you can restart your computer.
Restart my computer.
That's the tip given online.
It doesn't matter. I mean, I don't have to have my video on.
You're the chair. Of course, you need to have your video on. Anyway, I'll leave it to you.
No, in the sense that look, this is a bizarre thing. I don't even understand what has happened.
Okay.
I'm going for my video settings.
Okay. Felix is coming. Hi.
So is the light enough? Because I'm sitting in dark. So is it okay now?
It's perfect.
Okay, okay. I was just sitting away from the street. Otherwise, there will be a lot of honking noise and everything. That's.
Sure. Felix, can you hear us?
Yeah, hi Madhu. Yes, yes.
Hi. Hi.
All is well.
Ram,
I cannot see your. I cannot see your. Yeah, your video is off or something.
I don't understand, Felix. I'm not able to get my video on.
Okay.
Ram, sincere suggestion, why don't you try switching, restarting your computer? It might work.
Oh, you are already on live, Madhu?
I am, because the link was giving some problem. I mean, I'll edit it after the meeting is over, the first half an hour. And there
Okay.
were people saying it is not working, so I just had to ensure that it was.
Mhm.
The link works for you?
I didn't check that link yet. I will have a look.
My internet failed completely because the BSNL network was down. I was getting a bit worried.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, it's fine. It's live. I can see
Wonderful,
it's live.
wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So we are set to go, and everything was fine. Let Ram come back, and then we are done.
Mhm. Okay.
So now that you're the co-host, even if I lose my internet, it will continue, right?
Did you make me? It will continue, no problem. Yeah, yeah, sure. 1 second.
Hi, Madhurima.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Okay,
Yes,
let me
I can. I can't see you, but I can hear you. Hi. I can see you too.
good. Yeah, I just feel like, I'm like at the end of my Zoom patience, but we have a long way to go.
Well, I'll tell you something to cheer you up and not feel so bad. My entire internet, like home internet, office internet, the entire district internet went down 5 minutes ago.
Oh gosh, so what are you doing?
So please cheer up, you know.
Are you using your phone hotspot
I
or
will
something?
start with my phone and the net is back for the moment. So I'm kind of making as many co-hosts as I can so that you don't.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
So, no. Zoom hosts, mine are the worst at this moment.
That's true. That's true in the big picture.
And I had the entire IT section running around till about an hour ago.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Now nothing will go wrong, and lo and behold, the main BSNL line goes.
Okay, Ram is here. Are you admitting him?
Yeah. Ram
Yeah.
was here. His video was giving some problem.
Okay.
We can see you finally. And I can't hear you. I can only, you have to unmute. Unmute. Ram, you're
Can you
Yes.
hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Things better?
Perfect.
Okay.
So did restarting help? Great.
Hi. Is Felix here?
Felix is here. Bimbi Bamba is here.
Yeah, yeah. Hi. Yes, yes.
So,
And
All
what
are
about
here. I
Sandeep?
think 7 more minutes to go, then we can start.
Achha, Sandeep and others?
Sandeep is just entering the Zoom.
And Jayati?
Not yet.
Okay. Is somebody ring the bell? Achha. Felix? Hey, Felix,
Yeah.
show yourself.
Hi.
He's visible.
No, I'm just saying, just show yourself. I wanted to tell him about this 10 tips page.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Oh, Felix morning.
Hi, sir. Yeah. I can hear you. I can hear you, sir. Yeah. Yes,
Okay,
Ram. Tell me.
we just added a page of 10 tips for presenters. When you're presenting online.
Okay.
All right, just take a look. Madhu,
It's on the Google Sites. I added a page.
huh?
Oh, you have already added that. Okay.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
updated that our site. Okay.
Yes. I've added a
Good,
white
good.
paper
Perfect.
and sent it. Yeah.
All right.
No, just so that it becomes, I'm trying to get onto my, to restart, having restarted my computer, I'm trying to see.
Why are you coming again?
I mean, I have more than one personality.
Looks
All right.
Don't we all?
Don't we all?
Hi, Usha.
Hi.
Okay.
So are these 10 tips something that one should look at right now?
Pretty useful. I mean, how to place the camera, which is a very important thing.
Yeah.
There are about 20 people on YouTube already. Where is my chairperson? He's gone missing again.
I'm here, man.
You're doing this magical act like kahin se nikal ke kahin aur you're popping up and
I am the Scarlet Pimpernel. Okay.
great. And 4-5 minutes and we can start.
Hmm? Yeah. I mean,
So is this part of a series that you're doing, the forum, or?
no,
Just one?
Usha, see, as Madhu will explain later on, there is no place for people to tap in and to get any kind of help on this online teaching business. I mean, everyone is pretty much left onto their own devices, and if an institution has something, well, they're busy reinventing the wheel from ground zero. So it's just that, smaller places have fewer people who can participate in this. And, I mean, there's an advantage to size and technology. So clearly the IITs have a head smart when it comes to resources and so on. So we just felt that, look, I mean, why are we all working in isolation? Let's just try to get, resources going together. And the other thing is that everyone's problems are actually the same.
That's true.
No,
Yeah.
it's not as if your problems are way different from mine, or I mean, regrettably, the digital divide is as strong in Delhi as it is in Tanjore. So that was the reason we fought. But I think Madhu is going to explain that when she
Okay.
does the actual introductions. Hi, Jayati.
Hi there.
This is from Delhi to Delhi. We could be in neighboring offices.
Yes. But you are in your office on a Sunday.
Look, at home, I cannot guarantee that either the power will not go off
Or the web, internet.
or-
Well, I've actually come to Sheikh Sarai because the internet is too bad in JNU.
Huh.
I couldn't do it.
So we
Yeah,
might as well
yeah.
be in.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
I can't even say Jhumri Talaiya because Jhumri Talaiya probably has better internet than we do. Achha, let me at least virtually introduce you to Usha. Usha, Jayati, and
Hi.
wherever Sandeep is, somewhere over here.
I can see him. Yes.
Achha,
Hi,
and
Sandeep.
Felix.
And I can see Felix, and I can see Biju,
Yeah,
and of course I can see Madhurima.
Right.
So there are various people in the waiting room.
Yeah, they have all been admitted in. They'll be joining.
And it's also going on YouTube as we speak. So.
Oh, you're live already?
Yes, there are already 47 people out there.
Okay.
So hopefully everyone has control on their audio and video, right?
Yes.
Yes, I have made all the panelists as co-speakers. And the rest I'll be muting them as and when required.
Is any kind of a QA planned for this question answer session?
Would you come again?
That's right. I'm just curious, because that needs some skills to conduct actually.
Achha.
But people can put in their questions in the Q&A. I mean, they don't have to speak. We can ask them to put it in the chat or in the Q&A.
You can't answer all of them. You have to pick up the ones that are relevant. So, that requires a dedicated person actually.
I mean, the job. I'll be checking on the questions on the YouTube.
Yeah.
And in the chat, in the Zoom chat, sometimes they put them in.
And stuff.
And in the
chat. Just to normalize before we actually start, are we starting immediately, Felix? No. Okay. How much time do we have?
Yeah, we can start now. It's already 3 o'clock.
No,
yeah, it's already 3 o'clock. Let us begin the session.
All right, fine.
No, go ahead. Take a couple of minutes, we can start. The people are still coming.
No, I just wanted to introduce the panelists to each other so that in a sense they know where each one is coming from. Starting with Usha Raman, who's at the top of my screen over here. She's a professor of communication at the University of Hyderabad. Communication is very much the name of the game over here. Okay, and next is Jayati Ghosh on my screen. Jayati teaches economics at the JNU. She's in the Center for Economic Studies and Planning, and she has large master's level classes in addition to PhD level classes, of course. And Usha also has large master's classes at the University of Hyderabad. And the third on my screen is Sandeep. And Sandeep is a faculty member at IIT Delhi, but presently on Lien at Shiv Nadar University. And he has really gigantic classes of undergraduates who are in computer science and engineering. And Felix, who is not on my screen at all, teaches at the Central University of Punjab in Bhatinda. Okay, again, the Central University is largely postgraduate, So, slightly different demographics for each one of the kinds of, class cohorts that we all share. So I just thought that, at least that the panelists should know where each of the others is coming from. Okay, Madhu, you want to start?
Can you give me a quick sort of, thing on how it's to be done, the whole format?
All right. Are you going to cover that, Madhu, or?
Please go ahead.
All right. What I'm planning is that, after the sort of, the fillings and whatnot are over and done with, I sort of invite each one of you in turn to speak for about 10 minutes. And each of the 10 minutes will be interspersed by perhaps a quick question or something from my side. And then once we are done with all the four, panelists, so to speak, just the leaders who would sort of highlight some of these problems, then we can open it up to the universe. Is it okay? Yeah. Okay, Madhu, when we start?
Wonderful. So just give me a second. And yeah. Welcome everybody and good afternoon. This COVID pandemic has practically forced all of us into online teaching, a concept that's new to all of us, even those who have taught some MOOC courses previously. Issues such as loss of audio-visual feedback from the students and low internet bandwidth are common to most teachers. Availability of appropriate devices is another, not just for the students, but also for the teachers. For example, a few days ago, some of my colleagues and me were trying to understand how to use the whiteboard of Zoom when your laptop does not have a touchscreen. On the other hand, issues such as institutional support, financial, software, and other, and levels of preparedness of the students for online learning are highly specific to regions and to institutes themselves. Since many of these problems are common, it is meaningless for every teacher to search for solutions. Learning from each other's experiences will free us of our time spent in finding technical solutions, time that can be spent with the students. Some of us might not even be aware of certain issues. For example, how to place the camera correctly when recording ourselves. Professor Ram has listed a few tips regarding this that you can find on the website of Discussion Forum for Online Teaching, DFOT for short. Discussion Forum for Online Teaching is a voluntary group of teachers who have come together to discuss and find solutions to problems that Indian college and university teachers are facing, especially in the context of sudden change to online teaching due to COVID-19 pandemic. At this moment, we have 637 members from 29 states and union territories in India and from 8 countries across 3 continents. We have 80 active members on Slack where problems and solutions are being discussed on a daily basis. Today's panel on how to engage students in online classes is the first of one from DFOT. The idea of DFOT, including this panel discussion, is not to provide prescriptions to problems, but to find solutions as a collective of teachers. Like Helen Keller once said, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. I once again welcome all of you to this first panel discussion of DFOT and now request Professor Ramaswamy of Department of Chemistry, IIT Delhi to chair the discussion. Over to you, Ram.
Thank you very much, Madhurima. Again, a very special welcome to all of you today for the first of the of hopefully continued engagements that we will have online on this business of teaching. The sort of the purpose for DFOT is really that it is a much needed resource for all of us at this point in time. All of us are swimming, each in our own institutions, each with our own subjects, and each one of us seemingly discovering the problems for the first time. Regardless of whether one is at IIT Delhi or at IIT Bombay or at the Central University of Tamil Nadu in Tiruvarur or in Bhatinda or in Mizoram or wherever, many of the problems that we face are very, very similar. Uh, the digital divide, okay, it's there, it's out there, everyone has talked, everyone faces it. I am here in my office on a Sunday afternoon because I'm not sure of either internet or power or both at any point in time in my house, which is in South Delhi, which is arguably one of the most privileged places in the country. And the same can be said for any problem of connectivity. More seriously, or rather, a more serious problem is that we've actually not learned how to teach uh, of online. One could argue that many of us never learned how to teach offline either. Our classrooms are testimony to that. But experience has at least brought many of us into that fold. But here is a new medium which is catching us totally unawares. Now, I hope that in many other of these discussions, we will address some of these because like anything that's worth doing and worth doing well, there is a learning curve and we can all learn how to do this. But one of the issues that repeatedly everybody has been talking about is sort of more or less goes along the rant or the gripe of the following type. How can I teach online? I don't know where to look. Usually I connect so well with the students when I am in front of them. And, I mean, look, this is something we have to live with. It's not as if anyone has a special way of doing, the online teaching, but there are some tips that we can all share. One of them is that don't speak too long. Having these long classes of 1 hour, 2 hours, my students are so interested. They just keep, hanging on to my word. That doesn't work over here. Uh, okay, now everyone can go on, and I don't mean to, denigrate anybody's efforts in this respect. But the point is this: that we all are finding different ways of coping. Somebody in Bangalore says, after every 15 minutes, I give a break. Someone has a different way of engaging with students. So what we thought is that let's start this discussion by talking about what are the problems that we face, identifying some of these common things that we all experience, and seeing whether we come up, there's no one solution to any particular thing because each one of us will have some solutions which will work. Some will work in some parts of the country, some will work for some subjects, some will not work for other subjects, and so on and so forth. So this is very much in a spirit of sharing and sort of an exchange of views and sort of just a free and frank discussion about it, because I think we should also acknowledge this. Online teaching is here to stay, whether it is an exclusive mode as it is now, or an optional mode, which is what many of us think will happen in a few years to come, because neither is the COVID going away very fast, nor are we going to really give up this. And, this is wonderful. Today, if we can have 70, 80, 100, 400, whatever number of teachers that are coming together on a Sunday afternoon without having to, get out of the homes, this kind of an advantage is something that we all will not give up easily. We learned how to speak on telephones when it was much better to talk in person. We are going to learn to teach online, and so we might as well come up with some ways of sharing our experiences with each other. Right. And taking my own advice of not speaking too long, let me now start by inviting the first of our panelists to share her views with us. Professor Usha Raman is a writer and a professor of communication and media studies at the University of Hyderabad. She edits a monthly magazine for school teachers called Teacher Plus, and presumably it is now Teacher Plus Online. She also curates a podcast where she finds unsuspecting people who will come and share their favorite novels and, and so on. And she writes a column for the Hindu Sunday magazine and does innumerable other things. She is based at the University of Hyderabad, which, as all of us know, is one of the leading universities of the country, but it has its very special position as serving, sort of being very central in India. So over to you, Usha.
Okay.
About 10 minutes, huh?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you. I thought it was supposed to be a one-sentence introduction, but thank you anyway. So I think like many of us, in this Zoom room and elsewhere, I spent much of the past few months feeling anxious about the return to teaching in a completely unfamiliar environment. When we closed in March, my own course was left about 30% unfinished, and my students were left in limbo, both about what they needed to do for the remaining part of the semester and in terms of what was going to happen in future, and also how they were going to be assessed and all of that. So I think there was some coping that we all had to do at that point. And I sort of coped by sending out a steady stream of emails. And I don't know if they welcomed it or not, but to all 30 students who were in my class at that point, I had a calendared email that I would send out twice a week, and kept telling them about how I was doing, asking how they were doing, and pointing them to resources that would keep them engaged with the subject. I don't know, keeping them engaged with me or with the class, but at least with the ideas that we were talking about. And of course, it helped that my course was about digital media and cyber culture. And so many of the students were already comfortable with working online. They'd already sort of thought about the medium and their position in it. So it was, I wouldn't say it was a typical group to engage with. It was, but even so, it was a challenge for us to, I think, imagine connectivity of a human sort. So I opened up a classroom, a class blog. It was an ongoing blog, but we opened up a new discussion thread that allowed them to vent about their anxieties and their contexts. And it taught me a lot about how they were situated as individuals within families that were not always sympathetic or empathetic to their situation. Many of them, had gotten used to living in a hostel, so going back home suddenly was, a big change. It also taught me a lot about my own discomforts. It was important to share with them my own uncertainties and fears, and some of them later told me that this really helped them feel a shared sense of vulnerability. And I think, in a sense, a forum like this also allows us to share our vulnerabilities. So it was not a great place to start from in terms of preparing for the coming semester, whenever that semester was to come. But institutions, and of course we as individuals, grudgingly have accepted that we cannot wait for the world to return to what we knew. And so by June, we in public universities began to work towards some form of starting up the new academic year. Of course, for private institutions, I think it was a different story because they, given the resources they had and the kind of student demographic they catered to, were able to return to business as somewhat usual in the new circumstances. But for us, issues, as Ram mentioned, of connectivity, of also readiness to learn online, those were all real issues that had to be recognized. So as I began thinking about how I was going to engage students in the monsoon semester, I found my preparation proceeding in two ways. One, for a course that I had never taught before, and secondly, for a course that I offer routinely. And I found that my approach to thinking about engagement and about my materials was very different in the two cases. In the first instance, where I was teaching a completely new course, I found that I was much more comfortable with the idea of inventing a course online. And I seem to see it as an opportunity to invent it from scratch, new syllabus, new materials, and new activities, all within this, new online sort of mode. And I found myself, although I have always been a skeptic about online learning, I found myself becoming increasingly excited about the opportunities that the online platform offered. And of course, I'm helped by extremely savvy doctoral students who, tell me what I'm not doing right. And I think that's a resource that, some of us in public universities are happy to have. So I discovered Google Classroom, and with the help of my research scholar, designed the course online. And I found myself thinking about synchronous, asynchronous bits, including multimedia that was light enough to upload, creating channels and opportunities for uni and multi-directional communication. Instance, I found myself feeling a little bit daunted. Because what I was trying to do was to recreate a course in a new context. And I found that I kept comparing what I used to do and, sort of falling short in terms of moving it online. And it was much more of a challenge to figure out how to facilitate engagement in this mode of comparison. So I realized that perhaps that's not the way to do things. I think maybe what we need to do is to think about online courses as new animals, not, version 2 of an offline course. That's been a learning. I think we're also reluctant to throw away the old and the baggage of the old. But I think it's important to actually think about this way of doing things as a break, as a disruption, the opportunity to disrupt. So one takeaway from this reflection is that we have to approach the online mode de novo, so to speak. But we can't do away with the baggage of broad curriculum, the aspiration of knowledge transfer and learning outcomes, and those things remain, but we need to rethink everything else, the what's of learning and the how's of learning, perhaps. And we need to recognize that every interactional space, medium or context, has different affordances. And affordance is a word we use loosely in the digital, in media courses. What really I'm talking about is, what does this medium allow us to do? What does it allow us to do that other media perhaps don't? So that's been one sort of major takeaway from this. And I suddenly see the screen share popping up, but anyway. So I would much rather see my students face to face, like all of you, but I also know that's not going to happen anytime soon. And I may not even be able to see them on a computer screen, right? I mean, if the bandwidth doesn't allow it, it's going to be just names on a screen, given the varying degrees to which they're connected. So thinking of a course anew rather than rethinking has been my coping strategy. So what do I see as the affordances of online teaching and learning? I think we need to look at this broadly, because a student's academic life isn't happening in a vacuum. It's embedded within a whole array of hopes and expectations, anxieties, excitements. And while the real-time face-to-face classroom allows us to some extent to seal them off from all manner of externalities, an online classroom really has to contend with these distractions being there, and consider that the course may actually be one of those distractions. So the advantages of a self-paced, learner-driven, multimodal online course have been pointed out by many. But we're in a position now to find out whether these theoretical understandings or theoretical advantages really do hold out, and how they might. Okay. And how these advantages might be modified or moderated by the broader context that envelops both the learner and teacher. So one of the questions that the moderator of this panel, actually Madhurima, proposed to us earlier was, what's a good formula for self-directed learning? And maybe that's something we'll come to in the discussion, but I think it's a formula we'll have to discover. And in my own instinct, I would say that it will vary within a classroom, within a class, all the way from 2080 to maybe 50-50, but in favor of self-directed. But that's something we'll have to discover and be prepared to adjust according to the individuals in our classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you, Usha. No, I mean, you've articulated many of these concerns, I think, that are shared by others. And I mean, one of the things that you alluded to obliquely, I thought at least, was that uh, the online space has actually been an equalizer for some groups of people in a very unexpected way. That, those who were not, those, I mean, there are people who actually do find the online world also, and from the students' perspective, something actually not very uncomfortable. They're able to cope with it in a better way. We'll come to many of these questions during the Q&A, of course. And the next on the panel, and let me at least tell you the sequence in which we will observe, go on the panel. So I'm going to invite Jayati next, and then Sandeep, and finally Felix. Let me just briefly introduce Jayati Ghosh, who truly doesn't need an introduction to those who read various newspapers or watch TV channels or many of these other things. But Jayati is a professor of economics at the Jawaharlal Nehru University. And Jayati, would you please unmute your mic also so that we can hear
the
you
usual
clear.
problem, yeah.
Yeah. And and she teaches economics at two fairly large classes at JNU, which is in the news for various reasons. And there are many different kinds of concerns that come up over here. Jayati.
Thank you so much, Ram.
10 minutes.
Sure, less, I hope. I'm sorry, I feel a bit of a fraud because I really have no answers and solutions and good advice to give. I really have a whole set of terrible problems that I really don't know how to deal with myself. So I'm here really to kind of, I suppose you would call it rant, Ram, to say, what do we do? Now, I think, briefly my experience, when this thing started, I had done half of a course. I teach a compulsory course on international trade and finance. And this year there were 94 students. Now, I had finished about half of the course, which covers international trade, and the second half is open economy and international finance issues. So the first half was done face-to-face, pretty much, except for the last few lectures. And then we actually had to move online. And I started the online lectures at the students' request fairly early. I think I started it by early April. So we were doing this throughout the lockdown. Now, it was at the students' request based on our student faculty committee and the student reps and so on. But it soon emerged that out of these 94 students, the maximum attendance we had during any one lecture was 40. And on average, it was about 28 to 34, the average attendance in the lecture. Of course, we also did a survey among the students. It turns out 30 students don't even have a smartphone. So there's no question, and they don't have laptops. So they would have to go somewhere and go to one of those centers and do all of that to actually access the lecture later on as well. Not just, you can obviously access. Many of them were in such poor connectivity areas that they couldn't actually be with us during the live lecture, and they could barely download because Zoom is actually quite heavy to download as well. So my experience is actually that it has dramatically increased the divide among students. It's been a great, it's been a big source of inequality because in JNU, as you probably know, we get students from all over the country and from very, very different backgrounds. And many in rural areas, two were in Kashmir, one was in Mizoram, one was in Nagaland. They absolutely didn't get access the whole time. But even those who were in the city of Delhi, but happened, there were two in Northeast Delhi, who were in very difficult circumstances and were unable to actually access. Some of the worst problems were faced by those who were still on JNU campus because the connectivity problems are so bad. I'm here, I have actually come away to my daughter's house because I would not have been able to connect today on campus. So I came here to be able to do this. So there's a massive problem of the digital divide. Now, I don't really know how we deal with this one. We can make the lectures shorter. We can make them more interesting. We can make them simpler. We can send out notes. And I've done all of those things, sent out little notes of the based on the lectures, etc., etc., etc. But that really still doesn't somehow deal with this. And I'm actually still trying to figure out how we deal with, let us say, those 30 students of mine who don't have smartphones and who obviously cannot just afford smartphones or even afford to go and sit in one of those I don't even know whether computer cafes exist anymore or whatever, some other place where they could do this. Other students pointed out that, listen, data is very expensive, and I'm expecting them to download all this stuff 3 times a week. It's expensive for them. So I really don't know how we deal with that. And to me, that's a very, very major concern, because one of the things about JNU was that at least the classroom was a kind of equalizer. And when students didn't understand something, even if they were too shy to tell you in the class in front of everybody, they could come to you afterwards and say, we didn't understand what the hell you said. And, you could. Now, I tried telling everybody, please, email me afterwards, WhatsApp me afterwards, contact me, we talk about it. And many of them did. But the ones who did were not the ones who really needed it. And I don't think I have interacted with that bunch this year. This is a first year class. And I think there is a whole, I would say 30% of the class who would really have needed some kind of interaction with me. And I've had none, zero interaction with them. So for me, this is the biggest concern, that I don't know what we do with those who are excluded. And we can't simply say everybody should have high-speed internet. Of course they should, but right now they don't. And how are we going to deal with this? So that's my first problem. The second has to do with pedagogy. And of course, it's also my limitation. I can't use that touchpad and the Zoom diagram stuff, forget it. So a lot of the course involves some diagrams. But a significant part of the course, there are some models which I often explain through diagrams. And I could do it on the board. I took to making the diagrams, taking a picture of it and putting it into the Zoom thing as on the screen as part of the PowerPoint. But it doesn't work the same way, because if somebody doesn't understand why the slope is this way, or why the two things are, it somehow you can't really get that across. It was really, and that formulae is another killer for me. I mean, I'm writing them down, putting it on a PowerPoint presentation and sending it to people. I don't think most of them are getting it. I've had different, and it's very interesting the kind of feedback I've got from this class. There is a bunch of, I would say about 20, 25, who actually said, we really enjoyed it. We didn't see much difference. We've learned a lot. And they, by the way, they've also done very well. Some of them have done exceptionally well in their, in the papers they wrote and so on. But these are the people who didn't need me. They were able to spend the time they had to access all the kind of material, that the readings I was suggesting. They got what I was saying. They also were the ones who were emailing me and WhatsApping me more. So the ones who were very good got even better. I don't know what has happened to the others. And there is another group, which I think has not, I don't know what has happened to them. They're just, they've fallen through the cracks completely. And there's a middle group that it has just sort of skated by somehow. And I feel that I haven't been able to get through in a way that would actually deal with that. Now, so there are two immediate issues I'm highlighting. One is broadly connectivity plus sociological, because it's not only sociological. I had a very tragic message from one of my students who said, I wanted to write this essay. I gave them 2 essays to write, kind of answers of questions. But I've not been able to, because I'm stuck in this one small room with my family and they're fighting all the time, so I can't concentrate. And you can see it happening. And there must be several like that who didn't even, were not able to tell me. So there is that. There's the whole socioeconomic and technological divide. But then there is the whole problem of getting across things which you can do in a class, formulae, and look, all these MOOCs that do all the international trade courses, I've told many of my students to go and look at them, and none of them is very good. Okay, because there is something about that kind of teaching, slightly technical teaching, which requires a little bit more interaction than you can get either in a MOOC or in an online lecture. So as I said, I don't have solutions. I've really come to tell you my problems. So let me stop here.
Okay, thank you, Jayati. Jayati, in many of the private universities and in some public universities, I've been given to understand, the university enables all the students to have either smartphones or devices. I know that.
Yeah,
No,
well,
is there something that we should be demanding on behalf of the students?
I think if we are going to take this as the way forward, we should give them tablets, not smartphones, because you need
Whichever,
something like
whatever it is.
tablets and data. We should buy data for them.
And dongles. So
Yeah.
right,
That's right. So
I think
these
it's
we
come up
must
more,
insist. Yeah. So some device plus data access.
Yeah, but what I was saying is that we should make clear that the responsibility is not that of the student to do this, but of the institution to.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, so thanks, Jayati. The next speaker is Sandeep Sen, who will shortly be unmuting himself. Sandeep is a professor of computer science at the IIT Delhi. Presently, he is the director of the engineering studies at Shiv Nadar University. So a slightly different kind of space that we get to hear about. Sandeep?
Okay. Thank you, Ram. So again, my heartfelt thanks to the organizers, Professor Madhurima, Professor Ramaswamy, for having me in the forum, and a very warm good afternoon to all the viewers. I may just want to focus on slightly different things than what my previous speaker said. I would also share my experience of the last few months. But somehow in my mind, I think things were building up to it. I've had a long journey, starting from early 90s. Started basically my academic career, mostly it has been IIT Delhi. So what started with, let's say, a 30, 40 students class, gradually built up by late 90s to about 150 or so, because the IITs scaled up, and when things scale up, and we didn't have, of course, all these technologies then. So I recall that, I was, to teach the first year programming course to about close to 200 students. I was put in the seminar hall. We didn't even have that sort of a lecture room. And the seminar hall, was actually dimmed when I started teaching. So I could not actually see the students, okay? And I used two overhead projectors, those OHPs, old-fashioned OHPs, and so that I could just switch from one to the other. So I kind of had two blackboards in the room, right? And I recall, that I was fairly comfortable in sort of writing on the transparency. I would not take pre-prepared transparency. So I'm one of those people who doesn't prepare PowerPoint slides. I'm stuck to that policy, and I can still do it in the new regime. Okay, so I can write on my tablet. So it's all basically a substitute for the blackboard. Anyway, so just going back, so I recall that I would be teaching in a fair level of comfort, except that because the lights were dimmed out, I couldn't even see the students. And most students actually, because there's a very large auditorium, most students actually naturally would converge to the back of the auditorium. Okay, so so they could actually come, fall asleep in comfort of the AC and everything. So late 90s, not all rooms had ACs. Okay, so I'm saying that to some extent, if I my some kind of vivid recollection I have, it's like a deja vu that I've started teaching, so I'm now in Shiv Nadar University for the last year. So back in March, so as it was pointed out by some of my previous speakers, the transition to online was, almost, abrupt and very, I would say, also smooth. It just so happened that the transition happened during the midterm break. So we never lost a day of teaching. Okay, but that doesn't mean that it was effective teaching. So from my previous experience of teaching large classes in IIT, and then I also had done some NPTEL teaching, okay, and then there are some videos that I made, okay. So these experiences maybe probably helped me somewhat in dealing with the situation where my students are invisible, essentially, okay. So the main problem that the difference I would say that I felt between really going teaching online because I didn't have an option, right, vis-a-vis my previous experiences of teaching large classes in large auditoriums, or doing a NPTEL kind of recording. Even the NPTEL recording was done in studios. So I had about 20 students sitting in front of me, and when I would say something, there would be some reactions, okay, and which actually helps the teacher. So that energy that flows from the student to teacher actually sort of makes the teaching more interesting. That's basically the immersive experience, right? That's what we completely lose out in an online mode. But then, I'm not just expressing skepticism about that. I'm just saying these are the differences that we need to learn to live with. So the main problem that I have is, light doesn't travel at the same speed through the network, essentially. We have disruptions, okay? So I don't know even in the next 1 minute whether the screen is going to blank out or not. That's the basic anxiety that I think all of us face, okay? The light and sound doesn't travel. On the other hand, I have the benefit, if when students are attending and they have questions, then I have a chat box where I can actually look at the questions posed by them. I can answer them really methodically. So there are advantages that I can see. Of course, all this, takes getting used to. Okay, the real challenge is, the way I would look upon it is that suppose, we had, and we are going to have better and better technologies. Okay, so let's say we are not just looking at the transient problem. Let's say that what happens in the long run. I think part of the discussion is also about that this may actually survive well below, beyond the pandemic class, and it could be in that, what Ram was referring to in a hybrid mode, essentially. So the question is that, can we actually leverage all this, our learning and the technology, to make the hybrid even better than what it used to be? Okay, that's one point I think we need to think about. And suppose we had perfect technology, okay, that we didn't have any complaints about disruptions in the networks, or students not attending everything, and it was a perfect technology that was given to us. Perhaps even you can think about maybe 50 years down the road, can we even have holograms or something? So that gives us a more realistic experience, virtual reality. So even with all that, I think finally, there are two challenges that it will be very difficult to solve. One is, how do you conduct tests? Okay, so it's not the delivery of education. It's the tests, exams are intricately linked with the education. The way that we deliver education, we need to monitor how students are learning. So that's something that I don't see any foreseeable technology providing us with any solution. I certainly don't buy those very superficial solutions like e-proctoring. Absolutely, I have no faith in that. I don't think anyone can even guarantee anything about that. The second is, it also depends on subjects. So especially in science and engineering, how are you going to basically substitute the real hands-on laboratory experiences? Okay, and it's time, probably, maybe it's also, again, I mean, the pandemic is not just disrupted something. It's probably also helped us. It has revealed some of the shortcomings of our education, that perhaps it's time to actually look beyond these kind of test tubes kind of labs, and think about something more robust that we can deliver online, or in some virtual mode. So yeah, I think I will stop here, and we can discuss more later. Ram, you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sandeep. No, I mean, these are some of the issues which I hope that the purpose of having a forum really is that we can come back to these discussions over and over again. Different groups participating with different feeling, different opinions and different reactions and so on. I think that both the issues that you raised, that of evaluation, whether online or offline, it doesn't matter. That is one thing that is actually seizing a lot of institutions, and people have not, I think, reacted very well to it so far. This business of so-called open book exams, as if this is some magical way of solving this problem of not. This open book exam is it. In another forum, Professor Alag and I discussed this issue, and it is something that happens in for a different kind of a course. It cannot work for all undergraduate courses. It cannot work for very large classes. And so is e-proctoring. more worrisome thing is really what happens when, when experiment and laboratory experiments are a crucial component of the course itself. This is just a lead in to Felix, who will in a moment unmute himself. Felix is an associate professor of biology at the Central University of Punjab in Bathinda. He's an experimental biologist. And apart from various other things, the one thing that I thought I should mention, that he's gone further afield than most of us. He's been to Antarctica and done experiments over there. So now the question is, how do you do that online? So maybe it's easier to do that online than it is to do that in person. But Felix, your take on all this.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Ram, for the introduction. And basically, I'm not really an experimental biologist. I'm mostly into, the expedition and biodiversity profiling, that kind of works. That is what I do. And coming to the teaching, I've been teaching here in this new university in a township called Bathinda in rural Punjab for the last 10 years. I was fortunate to associate with two of the programs of the MHRD. One is EPG Padashala, and the another one is MOOC, Swayam MOOC, where Professor Madhu is also with me. I'm also teaching there. I have a course with the Swayam MOOC, so I can just share my experience with that. And the course was well received. This is now in the 4th rerun with around 2,600 enrollees in that MOOC. So, because, today I'm not going to talk much about my experience with this Swayam, but more on the specific questions that Madhu has shared with all of us. One is about, what is actually the pros of the online teaching, and as well as the cons. As per my understanding, yes, I would also like to share that I did a survey in the beginning of this COVID-19 pandemic with the students, how the students perceive the online teaching. And I can also share a little bit of the results of the survey to you. The one eye-opener is that almost 83% of the students access the contents through the mobile phone. Of course, it depends who the the students are from. My survey was like, it is just a random sample with 1,334 N. So it was not that a small survey, but it's a remix of different people. Sorry. Yeah, so majority of the students are actually accessing contents through the mobile phone. That is an eye-opener. And coming to the pros and cons, I asked the survey participants to share, and majority of them agreed that the flexibility, the time, only for the recorded shows. Sorry, keep on getting some calls. Sorry. Yeah, flexibility, that the time. Of course, that is only for the recorded lectures, not for the synchronous lectures. But if it's recorded, usually my style is I record the things and I put in the YouTube, and the students can access anytime. They can download it as well. So that actually bypasses the problems with internet access. So even if their internet is not working that time, it doesn't matter. They can access the content anytime. So that flexibility is, most of the participants agreed that there is a big plus point of the online teaching compared with the offline teaching. And the wider reach, especially if you put your lectures on the YouTube, make it open so students can access the lectures, especially great teachers like Professor Ram, though students haven't cracked the JEE, still can access his lectures, if he made the lectures on the YouTube. So the wider reach is extremely important pro for the online teaching. And the students can access it in the comfort of their home, and of course, the students also agreed that the emotional respite from the loneliness as one of the thing with this, that actually connect with the other colleagues and the classmates. And of course, the cons coming to the online teaching is more distractions. That is true, because if you are at home, you are not really bound to, of course, in the classroom, if you sleep, people can, the teacher can catch you. But at home, a lot of things, cats can distract you, mother can call you, a lot of TV, higher tendency for procrastination. That is another big problem with the online teaching, comparing with the brick and mortar, the traditional classroom. And also, it also highly dependent upon the computers and connectivity. So in my survey, another very interesting twist which I found is that only very few people access the contents through the laptop. But among those people, they are much more satisfied with the online teaching. The experience is a lot more better with those students who access through the laptop. So that is what that's very interesting, because most of this on the teaching that the teachers make it through the for the students, the target audience is those students having the laptop, but the reality is very different. Most of them are accessing through the mobile phone. So we have to actually redesign our contents in such a way that it is more mobile friendly. And of course, audio visual feedback is a con, but the point is here is that I would like to share a little bit of digression of the discussion, that the traditional model of the teaching, I don't know, I'm not that favor, especially in coming to the education, higher education, the Gurukul model, where the teacher is, it's mostly a monologue with the students, the didactic model. That model of the teaching is an outdated, I would say, and that is why it's a more degree oriented or exam matters in that case. So Professor Sandeep also made a point about the evaluation, but in this case of this flipped classroom, it is more student centric, where you are actually releasing this videos and the students access it, but the classrooms are mostly the discussions. So in that kind of situation, it is basically the student centric, and it's more outcome oriented or the goal oriented, where the exam doesn't matter. And the teachers are not really considered to be like a god. In India, that is one of my major objection. It's not just in India, but many places the teachers are considered to be like a guru, and but actually the role of teacher is more like a facilitator of the knowledge discovery. So that point is missing in most of this the teaching learning experience. That is, I would like to make the flipped class is really helpful. According to my experience for the last 10 years, most of the lectures are online, and especially with the Swayam MOOC as well, the course which I'm handling, I ask the students to take up the classes there and come prepared for the discussion. So fostering discussion in the classroom, the classroom is not just I'm the one talking. Most of the time the students are talking. So that blended approach works fine with the higher education. That is my personal take on it. So the main point I would like to tell you is this, the teacher centric approach is flawed. It has to be a student centric, and the role of teacher is not exactly like a like a guru or like a god. I have seen some news report that the students on the Guru Paurnami, students are washing the feet of the teacher. That model is really outdated, and we should actually we should actually get rid of that ego, and we should actually come in to the level of the students, and we just have to facilitate that knowledge discovery. That is my take on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Felix. I should invite you to JNU, where you will certainly not be, your feet will not be washed on Guru Purnima or any such thing. No, but I think this sort of the important, one important take from your talk is you've spoken about the flipped classroom, and and emphasize the importance of asynchronicity. That is putting your lectures online, making them available. This can solve some problems, although not all. After all, you teach at a new central university, so the number of students is actually quite small. I don't know how big the biggest classes that you have are. So it probably works with that demographic and that cohort of students that are all accessing stuff on the mobiles. But nevertheless, I think the idea of a flipped classroom is an important way of sort of student engagement, right? So, okay, let me thank all four of you for having shared your views. And rants and gripes and all that sort of a thing. And let me just sort of try to bring back our discussion, because we do have some more time, and I'd like to discuss really what are the ways in which you think you are successful at engaging the students and what are the ways in which you are not. Now, this is something where, we can have some questions from the audience, Madhu, and or comments, or if people have any particular points that they want to share. Uh, See, we thought that we'd have it on the chat, but
Questions.
So, can I come in for a second?
yeah, sure, Sandeep.
So yeah, no, I just recalled a nice anecdote. So this is about the flip mode. So when this time from that April, March when we had to go online. So initially I didn't have that much of a faith in the networks. Okay, that how it's going to happen interactively, real time. So what I did was I went back to this. I got myself one of those iPad, the latest iPad with the pen, and toyed over making videos. This like 90 minutes videos. And then I told my class that here is a video. So even if there is some disruptions during the in the class, there is always this video to fall back upon, and I do a flipped kind of thing. So initially they said fine. Then after a couple of lectures, I mean a week or so, so the class representative writes to me, sir, do you think you should make all that effort to make a video and then again come to the class and have a discussion? You're taking probably burning too much of your time. I said, no, that's all right. Don't worry about me. The next week they came back, all of them came back to me saying that, sir, actually, we don't have time to watch your video before the class. So maybe you should just do it online. Just couldn't help this comment.
No, I mean, certainly. I mean, I think that is, you can make all the flipped classroom, but if the person who is being flipped for doesn't listen, but yeah, I think so. All right. See, one of the motivations for this discussion was the comments, because in some of the smaller colleges and in smaller universities, the luxury that we have of being able to watch however many faces on the screen is not there. There are classes where the teacher's screen is the only visible screen, and all the students are blacked out because the bandwidth is not high enough. How does one do something, how does one flip a classroom in that kind of scenario? I mean, I don't know whether the other people, among, people who are online right now or listening have tried the flipped classroom. But I mean, Jayati, have you tried putting your lectures online and leaving them there for the students to follow?
Yes, all the lectures, they were all recorded, they were all kept online, and there was a group, and any student could access it afterwards. How many of them actually did, we have no way of knowing. They came back and said, yes, we are, but I mean, you actually have no idea.
It would be like Sandeep's.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, they were all up there, but I don't know how many actually accessed. But there are a number of interesting comments in the chat. I'm just wondering if
which is what I'm waiting for,
yeah.
Madhurima to actually start speaking them out.
Before I really take on the questions, because a lot of them have a common thread and I'll be grouping them. I think one serious question that's underlying all the other questions is, how do you make the students to be self-learners? Because this online learning seems to emphasize that. This was a comment also from my colleague Viju. So the students have to be more invested in the learning. How do you ensure that?
Usha?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to very briefly speak to that, because I think that's a problem that has a long tail, right? I mean, it's not something that higher education necessarily can engender all of a sudden. And I think that requires that we go back to the way children learn in school and see themselves as being responsible for their own learning, so that they can effectively be, self-directed learners in higher education. So I think that's a broader of the way, our culture has looked at teaching and learning. So that's, I mean, I think it's a complicated problem. But, if I could just leave this thought, if I may, Ram, about this whole question of engagement, I mean, we somehow assume that in the pre-COVID classroom, there was complete engagement. We assume that all the 80 students or 50 students in our classrooms, just because we were there co-present, that somehow engagement happened. So I think we're also idealizing this notion of engagement, and maybe we need to put less responsibility and take less of the burden on ourselves for this whole thing called engagement.
No, I think that's a very good point, Usha. Even frequently earlier in the pre-COVIDian times, one has gone to class and lost one's shirt completely and screamed at them for not being interested in the subject and asking them why they are wasting taxpayers' money by coming out and whatever. The usual rants that one is able to do and one used to enjoy doing from time to time. Dare I say. No, that's true. But, I think what this question of the engagement is that even that level, in a typical class, at least you had some visual cues or some kind of feedback. And that gets more and more difficult when you can't even see them. Your point is well taken, that don't expect too much of that, that everyone's going to be just agog once you're online. Yeah. All
So
right. So,
let me go
Madhu,
through.
you want to go to the next question?
Yes. A bunch of questions are: how do you make the classes interactive or / interesting for the students in an online mode? I'm clubbing a lot of questions together because they have the same theme.
All right. Felix, have you thought a little about that?
Unmute.
Unmute yourself. I mean, you look more.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just I was listening. Ram, you were saying about how we can see the face in the class that is actually missing because most of them are not actually using turning on their video because of the constraints of the internet. I was actually thinking about at that moment. I was thinking about my experience of taking one MOOC 3 years back. I took a MOOC on the MOOC is called Elements of AI, Artificial Intelligence, offered by University of Helsinki in Finland. This is one of the most popular MOOC in the history of MOOCs. I suggest people just out of curiosity, just take that course. Very interesting. Not a single video or not a single audio in the entire MOOC. I was so shocked to see that. It is actually, we are paying much more attention to the video component and audio component that is choking most of the bandwidth. And that kind of instructional design is the future of the countries like us, I would say. And that course has a very interesting, that actually had a lot of puzzles, solving the bridge problem, for example. So even after 3 years, I still remember those puzzles that we had to solve it as part of that MOOC. So that kind of puzzles and the instructional design is really core for any.
Can I just interject over here? You see,
Yes.
one of the problems that we have is that these are not de novo courses. We are having to teach specific courses to our students. You have to complete a syllabus. You have to complete a particular set of courses, and therefore, we don't have this kind of a freedom. We have to give whatever the existing, many of us are teaching in the second year of a 3-year program or in the third year of a 4-year program or some such thing like that. So when it comes to ongoing classes, I think that these are problems that we have to address in a different way. Jayati, you were saying something.
Yes, I just want to add to that. I've been involved in creating an online course along with UNICEF, which is available online, and it's about socioeconomic rights, and it looked at macroeconomics for practitioners. It took us a year and a half to prepare that. It's incredibly difficult. These non-video, non-audio things are very, very difficult. And they require a lot of work, and they require a lot of expertise. And then you have to put in links, you have to put in different kinds of things. You have to design it completely differently. I don't think we can expect our teachers to do that kind of enormous labor before a course in the time we have available. These are very, very demanding things to put together in that kind of mode.
Sandeep?
Yeah, that's a very important point being made, and you brought it up, that when we go on the online mode, and particularly when we have to complete a course in a semester, the time flies very quickly. So we have to, so one thing that, we require for online is a lot more preparation that you would do otherwise. That holds for also, teaching large classes. The other thing is that the content has to be shrunk and compressed because you are not able to be, the network are not going to be as efficient as you are basically in class. So it could imply compression of about maybe even 30, 40, even 50% of the material. So that's something that we need to be very cognizant about. The rate at which we are teaching, the pace, and the pace that also the being absorbed from the other side, that we need to be very, very cognizant of. We cannot simply just go and try to reproduce what we're doing in the classroom setting.
True.
And that has to be done institutionally. Courses have to be.
That's the point. It has to be done institutionally, and sometimes our institutions are not very cooperative because the institutions are demanding that exams have to be held, and some sort of brownie points have to be earned out at ministries that we've had our courses, we've given our degrees, and so on and so forth. Having said that, I think we've also got to see that the luxury of having a zero semester or a zero year is simply not there for many of our institutions, because that would also require people to, double and triple up classes in subsequent years. So, so some of these sort of long range solutions are not that easy for all of us to implement. I don't know, what is the feeling, at large public universities like we have at the University of Hyderabad, Usha, there is very much a desire to keep a certain kind of schedule, even if it's just slightly delayed. Is that not true?
Yes, it is. In fact, we've, just speaking about my own department, for instance, we've arranged the timetable much like we would otherwise. So just talking about the timetable, how it looks on the screen. And I think that reflects that we want to fit a new mode of working into an old framework. And I mean, while again, I'm in a very privileged space within my department because we all talk to each other, there's a very good atmosphere. But even so, I think there's an expectation that you will do things a new way, but according to the old rules, there's a strange kind of contradiction there. So while they say, yes, of course, do short lectures, on the timetable, you see that you've been allotted a 2-hour slot. So how is that going to be, how are you going to be held accountable by students if you tell them that you're only going to be giving a short lecture, but the timetable is for 2 hours? So I think, yes, having said all that, there have been efforts. The University of Hyderabad has had, sessions for faculty to move their courses online, but it is moving existing courses online. We're not being encouraged to think of courses in a completely different way.
As a continuation,
Just 1 second, Jayati has to leave.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Thank you. And I look forward to more of these discussions. It's very interesting and useful. Thanks.
Especially because we are going to come up with brand new ways of evaluation.
Yeah, and solve our problems. Great. Okay.
I think already this discussion has thrown up a few ideas about how to do things differently.
And also what to demand from the university, at least some devices and data for the students.
We must demand for our students,
yes,
even if they cannot demand for themselves.
Exactly. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Professor. Bye. As a continuation of the same theme, there are two other small ideas. One is that, since the students are not on the campuses, can't their hostel fee that they pay be redirected towards supplying them with devices and dongles? And two, it's what we were discussing, which is we need to really start allowing for new ways of teaching, that is a lower workload, and also allowing for the teachers to access open courses. Not every university allows students to take courses from YouTube or elsewhere. So these are mostly administrative issues. So maybe would you like to say a few words about that?
Yeah. Okay, let me just amplify a little on what Madhu is saying. As of now, there are a set of courses on NPTEL or SWAYAM, but these are very limited. They are not in all subjects and they are not at all levels. There are also courses that are available with third-party providers like Udacity or Coursera, and I presume shortly Byju's and why not, all those will also come up with some courses. The question is, can these be taken for credit? Okay, many of the courses on NPTEL are, you can get a certificate for having attended them, but you get the certificate after paying a special fee to the NPTEL. Special fees are to be collected by the NPTEL and so on. And they frequently do not count for credit towards your degree. I don't know whether some of the new central universities, Punjab and Tamil Nadu, whether they allow, because usually these are at places where there is very low faculty numbers and not enough diversity in faculty offerings. So, perhaps if these courses became available for credit, you could have students at least engaged with smaller packages of instruction elsewhere. Felix, do you all allow courses?
Yes, yeah, we do allow. I suppose it is 20% of the total credit can be from the MOOC. That is what, as per the latest UGC guidelines, and there is a UGC credit transfer framework that has been put up, I think it's in 2018, and that guideline is clearly mentioned that any MOOC that is coming through the SWAYAM platform can be taken and can be considered as part of the the ongoing existing courses. So there is no problem with this UGC credit transfer mechanism, and not just in the new university, but old university, JNU and HCU as well, because everything comes under the same umbrella framework of the MHRD. But I'm surprised to know that the NPTEL courses cannot be considered for the IIT. So that is an eye opener for me.
Yeah.
Uh,
There was a comment actually from Biju at Central University of Tamil Nadu. If you are on the Zoom panel, Biju, would you just, make yourself visible and speak?
Thank you, Ram. I think I'm audible.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the credit transfer, like Felix was talking, rather with Dr. Madhurima, we had great discussion how exactly we can allow the students for the credit transfer. As you were mentioning, the syllabus and the maybe per se the quality of the syllabus and the course, how exactly we match it with the quality concern of the university. So in our university, we have decided that if anybody wants to transfer the credit, let them select the course, and that syllabus will be vetted with the experts, and then the board of studies need to be approved.
Okay.
Then that will be moved to the credit transfer.
Okay.
So that's what done at our institutional level.
Okay, and it's in force right now?
It's in force, and even there is a concern of the core courses, because if the students are opting for a core course, that will be a challenge for the existing faculties. So right now we have allowed for general elective courses can be taken as a precautionary measure.
Okay.
I'd like to add one bit to this, Ram. The bigger issue we have is if the course that is offered through SWAYAM platform, including NPTEL, is not repeated. What happens to a student who fails?
Okay, before we come to that, Madhu, can I just request Debashish Ghoshal, who has also been posting on the chat about some experience that he has with online teaching in using Audacity or Udacity, not Audacity. All right. Okay. Debashish, could you unmute yourself and speak now, please?
Yeah, it's actually, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. Actually, it's Audacity. Did I write it wrong? And that is not I used for teaching. That is what I used to record the lectures. I'll come to that later. Let me just give the background. I was teaching a course in quantum mechanics, the second course for MSc students. And
at
they were,
JNU.
sorry?
At JNU, right?
At JNU in the School of Physical Sciences. And there were 42 students in the class. When the lockdown happened, I had taught only about 20%. That is because the previous semester's spillover. We had the students agitating over the fees hike. So the previous semester was delayed for various reasons. And the final exam for my course actually happened on 25th of January. And the students did not want me to teach any new material before the exam. So I essentially started teaching at the end of January, beginning of February. So I had only about 20% of the material covered before the lockdown happened. So after the lockdown, initially for a few weeks, I did not start teaching, but by the third week of April, I started teaching online. I have a tablet, but initially I had a problem. The battery that the stylus required was not available because of lockdown. So I was not able to use the tablet. So I would just write notes by hand and then take a scan of that, email that to the students, and then also put it on the Google Classroom. Later, when I could get the battery replaced, I used the tablet in which I wrote again by hand the lectures and then emailed that to the students. The problem of writing the lectures is that unlike the notes that you prepare to teach in the class, which can be quite brief because it's just notes to yourself sometimes saying that what you have to cover, here you have to write much more. I expect that in social sciences, the problem will be even more serious because a lot of it is more verbal communication. But there, on the other hand, one can probably use some software or things which are already built into many systems. Now you can just read out and dictate something which types, which is harder in physics because every now and then we have to write a formula. So I had to write quite a bit because things that I would otherwise say, I would need to write it so that the students can read, especially those who do not have access to the online classes. And then these notes I would send by email and also put on the Google Classroom. And in the live sessions, again in Google Meet, we went through that, meaning I went through those notes explaining more or less what I had written, but evidently there were other issues that comes up because it's a live session. Sometimes the student would ask a question and I would repeat the question and answer it so that everyone can hear the question and the answer. Initially, I did not realize this, but because of talking to another colleague and getting feedback from students who were not able to come online, I realized that it is better to record these live sessions, but not video recording. Anyway, I was not keeping the video on. I was only sharing the screen because of bandwidth, better utilization of bandwidth. And this audios, the students said that they helped quite a lot because Google Classroom, the recording that it does, every class would come to 400 MB or so, which is very, very big. On the other hand, if you use just a software like Audacity, which is free, my classes tended to be long, about 1 hour, 20 minutes to 1.5 hours, because I went slow and the students asked questions, we would have discussions and so on. So that's about 40 MB, which I can save in Audacity in a somewhat low fidelity mode. That's still quite good, very good in fact. And then I'd cut that into 4 pieces so that they're about 10 MB each, which can be sent easily by email and can be downloaded also more easily by the students. And this the students said, especially those who could not come online, said that they found it very useful. They would look at the notes and then go through these audio recordings. Just to add one more thing, that out of the 42 students, the best attendance I have had was 29. That is only on one occasion, but typically the number of students who came online were anything between 20 to 25, 26. Thanks.
Thank you, Devashish. And sort of similar to Jayati's experience, but I think there's many practical advice. I hope you will please put this on the Slack discussion board and let others also know about Audacity. Please have the audacity to do that. All right. So, Sandeep, would you?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, to my previous speakers that, so it would be a better idea actually to, upload these things on a Google Drive or something, because emailing means that you are eating away bandwidth so many times. You want to email to 100 students, it's copied 100 times. So it's better to actually put it in a repository.
Brief interruption. I had also put it on Google Classroom, but it's for those students who were more comfortable using email. I was using both the forms.
Okay. All right. So, but I would really request those of you who have these kinds of solutions is to please post it on the Slack discussion board so that, a larger group can access it later.
Uh, Professor Bindu Bamba has a few questions and a few comments, and she's on Zoom.
Well, why doesn't she come on and speak?
Uh,
Bindu, unmute thyself and show your face.
Let me just see. Okay. Oh, hello. Hi. Yeah, I have been taking online classes for both history and philosophy of physics, and on introduction to particle physics. I found in the university community that the teachers are emphasizing more the problems rather than learning and trying to solve them, a lot of them. And I find that there is just a general attitude of giving excuses on campus. And I think that the teachers should take the opportunity to learn now. And it is very rewarding to use the new means of communication. And I have had a very good experience with online teaching. I have had more interaction with my students in online teaching than I had in class, because the classes are big, and here they just raise their hand, especially the women students who usually don't engage in discussion in class, at least in introduction to particle physics. Now they are raising their hands, and since they're chatting and they have a more comfortable space, I think, to ask questions. They are interacting a lot more. So all this gender divide also, I'm having the opposite experience, in that it is a gender positive experience for me, in the sense that a lot more of the women students are interacting because they're more anonymous on this platform.
Okay.
And the other thing is that I use something called Bandicut. I record the lecture in Zoom, and then it's a very massive file, and then I have this software which I downloaded free after a lot of research, and it's called Bandicut, and it cuts the MP4 into slices, and then I can share it in short files. I also have a Google Groups, and I also put it on the Google Drive. So they have, and I also they have many means of accessing the problem I have, though, is with Zoom, for example, there's this waiting room and the students have to come in one by one. So since I have like 72 students, I have to let them in. So the first 20 minutes of my class is basically letting students into the Zoom chat. And so I have to edit the MP4 that I've recorded. I have to edit out the first 20 minutes. So even if it is like 2 hours that Professor Raman is saying, 20 minutes of that is just letting the students into the classroom, or if they have lost connection, etc. So I like the fact that the classes are one hour, so at least I can talk for 20 minutes, because 20 minutes are letting them into the classroom and all. The only problem I have...
Bindu, just one question, Bindu. One moment.
Yes.
Felix, goodbye. I understand that you have to go.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to say one sentence, just to say appreciation to the Reddy Shah's question, not question, but his comment about the Audacity. I have used Audacity for quite some time, and Audacity also allows you to break your presentation, to multiple small chunks, and also the silence, you can remove it, and noise reduction, so many good things, and it's completely open source and completely free. And podcast, that is another thing missing. Podcast is also very, very important, especially in scenario. You really don't need any video, just audio itself. The podcast is all that. It's amazing, really. I think we really have to pay more attention on developing interesting audios as well, especially for those the disciplines, for example history, rather than, it's not practical for disciplines like mathematics or engineering, but yeah, those humanity disciplines especially. Yeah, and thanks a lot, Ram, for this discussion. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, goodbye, and I will see you all in the Slack channel. Yeah,
right.
Bye-bye.
Please do that. Yeah, Bindu, sorry for interrupting, but Felix had to go.
No. These were just random thoughts that came up. But I do have one problem though, and that is how am I going to evaluate them on the mathematical ability? Pedagogically, in my history and philosophy of physics, it was easy because they wrote a term paper and I could evaluate that. But in this, I don't know. Open books are very hard exams. They will all do very badly in open book exams. So it has to be some sort of a interactive quiz.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to do that. But I have also experimented with virtual reality platforms in which I can go and ask them things. But that, of course, requires a whole new level of connectivity, which a lot of them don't have. And I finance their dongles and geo connections and so on out of my project wherever I can get it through finance.
Yeah, okay, which actually brings me to a point which I would like to share with all of us who are over here and all who are listening also. See, having to go online is a necessity that has been caused by this pandemic. It should be the responsibility of the institution also to facilitate many things, not just to give students laptops or smartphones, but what is becoming pretty clear is that the institution per se, other than give us directions that thou shalt teach online, does not do anything to make sure that we can teach online. Namely, not one institution among those represented here today has invested in training the teachers. I think that we should sensitize our senior administration, our vice chancellors, our directors, and so on and so forth, that can we please have intense training sessions for teachers as to how to teach online? Or can, what we are trying to do over here on a sort of a discussion forum platform, bringing teachers from all over the country, it's not clear to me that even one institution has actually had an intense get together of all the teachers engaged in a particular class, in a particular discipline, coming together and saying, how do we do this, and so on. I'm sort of winding down the discussion, so I'm going to finally give Usha and Sandeep some time to respond on these particular on these questions. And also I noticed that there are some more questions that we could take. So please, Usha.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in to say that I didn't mean to give the impression that the University of Hyderabad has not done this. So in fact, last week they had 2-day sessions for different groups of teachers, and I was not part of them, but I know that the Center for Distance Learning, I forget what it's called now, has been trying to do this. And I think Anjali is here from my department, and she was part of one of those training sessions. So I don't know if she would like to say something, unmute herself and say something with your permission. But yes, there was something. How useful it was, I don't know. That's something she can probably comment on.
Till Anjali comes on, Sandeep, you were also wanting to...
I just wanted to share, while you're right that, people who are representing, their universities are not really thinking about anything. But on the other hand, in private universities, they are a lot more proactive about something called faculty development programs. And Shiv University this year specifically focused on essentially for a week. So there's a 1 week of intense sort of this discussion. They brought in some experts who are they know these platforms very well. So intense about like 6 hours a day kind of engagement about how to use these tools, the technologies properly. But in my view, that that kind of intense thing, help people becoming aware of things. But reaching to a certain comfort level takes much longer. But I think faculty development program is something that, as I said, it's more common in private universities compared to public universities because they actually they're not able to hire that quality of faculty. But sometimes, these things are very useful. So maybe we should actually take.
No, I should clarify. What I've noticed many institutions do, and the IIT Delhi has also done this, is how to use Zoom, which button to click where, how to allow people to come in into this. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the actual mechanics of teaching. How does one, where do you put the camera in front of the person? Where to position yourself with respect to, the board, or, what all these various things. The pedagogy of it, that is what I think we need to invest a little on. Again, we all do it to varying extents. And I also take the point that we never did it in the pre-COVIDian times.
Quote yourself on that.
Right. Okay, Sudhin, I noticed that you're somewhere in the ethers there. Is there something that you would like to say? Unmute thyself and show thy face. Anjali.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. This is a very nice discussion. Am I audible?
You're audible but not visible.
Is it necessary that I make myself visible?
No, please. Burkhas are also fine.
Yeah, so we had a 2-day workshop for faculty at the University of Hyderabad. And I attended both days very diligently from the beginning to the end. These were day-long sessions, a day-long workshop. The only thing that I felt was that it was overwhelming. I couldn't, I don't think I grasped everything, and 2 days are too little to understand. Though they were useful and they made us familiar with, different forms of online teaching, different ways to go about it. For example, Google Classroom, for example, LearnX. But the technicality of it was very, very overwhelming, and it made, I was kind of not stressing myself over it, but I think after the 2-day sessions, I felt a little too overwhelmed. And I feel, these are new times, these are unprecedented times. And I think across the board, whether they are students or faculty, I think we should just have compassion for everybody and assume the best motives of everyone, and that we learn along the way. That's what
it's just that we don't have a lot of time, right? Because the more time we take to learn, not that the time we invest in learning, the time is actually going away from, in some way, the student is paying the shortage of time. So I do feel that there is a cause for institutions to spend a little more effort in the pedagogy of online instruction rather than just the mechanics of it. Of course, it's very nice if you know exactly which button to press and so on and so forth. But still, what is much more important is how to do the actual teaching. I feel that we should ask our institutions to do that a little more. Okay, I'm going to ask Sudhin if you want to say any particular comment, and then Kudsia. Unmute yourself, please, Sudhin. Sudhin, you're not, you still are, you are mute, or your mic is very, very bad. Just while you figure that out, let me request Kudsia, please, Professor Kudsia Tehseen from AMU. Unmute कीजिए, madam. हाँ.
Yes, sir. Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. Um, just I wanted to point out some of the problems that we are facing, and that though we had the programs conducted regarding the training the teachers for the online teaching and all, but still each teacher has got his own preference, that some of them are using Zoom, some of them are using WebEx or even Google Meet. So the students who are having the mobiles, they are having the problem of data storage, the limited data storage. That is one problem. Everybody is not having an advanced type of mobile, though they may have the smartphone. Some of them are having problem in the classes also. And of course, besides that, there is another problem that we have got a certain time schedule, that this is the particular class for one teacher and then another teacher, because when we had the classroom classes, then we were having very, convenience that one teacher will enter the class, another will leave, like that. But here, because of the connectivity problems and all, one student that is still held up and another teacher's time is there. So there is so much overlap and confusion, that I give the time, invite the students at a certain time, and the other teacher has not left the students, like that. So a lot of confusion, that we still are taking the classes, and we are asking the students to come in the evening or even in the night, just to compensate that type of thing. So, these are some of the problems which are really, not worked out. And on the top of that, there is a lot of eye strain. All the time we are facing computer, So, this is going to be a real great problem. Because, we cannot even rest our eyes for a while. While teaching also, because there are other works, research works and other things. So throughout we are working on computers. So I'm having this problem of eye strain a lot. Yeah, that's
Fair enough. Sudhin, are you audible? Would you try saying something? No. Okay. Madhu?
Well, there are plenty of questions from YouTube, some of which have been covered, including the health issues of sitting in front of a computer for too long, eye strain. And one question that has been asked is, what about the psychological effect on the students who feel cooped up in their rooms and, being unable to participate, and the distractions and the depression?
And the psychological effects on the teachers, if you don't mind. Many of us are, the usual release that one has of going into a classroom and bullying a few students, even that is not available to you anymore.
True. There are plenty of questions. I don't think we have the time to take all of them. And
it's 4:35 now, and we had promised everybody a session until 4:30.
That's right.
So
maybe we can take the questions up on Slack, and I would request all the panelists to please be on Slack and answer the questions once we consolidate them.
Yeah, I think that would be fair enough, that we should try to do something like that. Okay, so to wind down this particular session, I would like to just thank all of you for being here, for participating in a sort of a fairly vigorous and energetic discussion. Like we promised at the beginning, it's not as if anyone has some special magic bullets, but I think it really helps to know that all of us are in the same boat. Whether it's sinking or not, I'm not sure. But we are all really in the same boat, and we better all work together to get us out of this spot that we are in. So thanks a lot. And we'll probably have another discussion in another 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Not too quickly after this, but we'll try to also, I would request all of you who are here, please join in on Slack. Make sure that you're part of a community, and we can all help each other to get through this rather difficult impasse that we are all in. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.